Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Oak Lounge. I am Alita. I'm chair of the Old Oaks Committee, and we are very excited about tonight. We are also especially excited about seeing all the different kinds of people that have come to witness and to hear and to listen and to learn. So I'm going to start off with the thank yous. I'm just going to say thank you to the catering staff, to the AV team, and then I know we also have some alumni AV team here that's come to check out on the new team, so I hope that they deliver. Yeah, keep an eye on them. But yes, I mean, guys, thank you. Thank you for being here. We're really, really excited about tonight. And then a special thank you, David, Director of Music at Somerset College. Thank you so much for hosting tonight. And we're really looking forward to the discussion. As a side note, the whole reason of a lounge is so that you feel like here we go. Everyone's there. The whole thing about the lounge is it needs to feel like your lounge. So if you notice that your glass of wine is empty, I don't know if it's like that at home, but you've got wine waiting for you. If you are hungry, get up, go get something to eat. Obviously, please don't have a massive chat while you're doing it. But this is your lounge, this is your space. Use it as you would. We've also got questions at the end. So if anyone's got a burning question, you will be able to ask it. And then for the rest, just enjoy. And thank you for being here. Yeah, thank you.
Well, good evening, everybody. Is my microphone working? Good. Okay. Well, we're really thrilled to have such an esteemed panel in the esteemed building this evening, and all of them are either alumni or with strong connections with Somerset College, which is really exciting, and that probably deserves a round of applause. And the important thing too is that all of them are successfully navigating the challenges of the music industry. And there are certain sort of recurring themes, just looking over your bios, before you introduce yourselves to the audience. The versatility which comes through education, global recognition, diverse expertise, and an innovative spirit, which is really exciting to read about. So these are the themes which promise, I think, to be a really exciting evening for us to delve into tonight. So I think the best thing, so that I don't leave any critical details out, is can I ask you to introduce yourselves? That would be really exciting.
Hello everybody, my name is Tim Wong. And yeah, I matriculated in 2013, and I'm a saxophonist, music producer, DJ, and entrepreneur in the music space. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Hi everybody. I am Kirsty Bose, but a lot of you will know me as Kirsten Adams. I matriculated here in 2012, and I am a violinist, singer, composer, and entrepreneur in the music space too. Thank you everybody for having me. I'm excited to have a chat about it.
My name is Lize Mynhardt, and I'm a musician, not a runner. As you can see, I'm taking a knock in the heat here. Just had to grab a guitar quickly, and I'm not used to that life. I am a musician and a songwriter. Most of what they do, an instrumentalist, business owner, just trying to keep the dream alive. Huh?
Hi everyone, I'm Anjulie Nock. I was a music teacher here quite a few years ago, and I'm always happy to be back, so thank you for inviting me. I'm still in music education. I'm a full-time music teacher at a school in the Bloemfontein Strand area. I'm a full-time performer and a full-time mom. So there's lots going on in my life, and I'm at a point now where I am really interested in going back to just full-time performing, and it is going to be a big step for me. So I feel I'm going to need all the help I can get from my students. I'm even considering taking my kids along to gigs to make reels and take my selfies for me and add music to it. But I'm excited to be here. I'm very proud of my students here to my left and to see all of you tonight.
certainly hear already that we're going to go off script, but I do have some leading questions to ask all of you, and I don't want to have to fixate on one of you at a time so that you feel that you're too much in the spotlight. But do feel free to chip in if you think that there's a question directed at somebody else and you think you've got something to add, or if you disagree strongly with them, that could be quite interesting too. So, Anjulie, starting with you, it would be great if you could share with us what the initial stimulus was, the passion that kind of ignited your journey, and if you could talk a little bit around, did you imagine wearing quite so many hats in your professional career, and how that works for you?
So, starting out, I studied classical music. I studied at the University of Stellenbosch. And when I was at school, I was in a very well-balanced school where we were allowed to explore different kinds of music. I went to Stellenbosch High School, and together with my friends, we would always jam during break times, and we would explore jazz and rock and pop with our classical instruments. And when I went on to study classical music, I found it at times to be a little bit restricting. I still understood that I was getting a very good grounding in it, and I could see the future and having a good background and foundation with my classical music, but I missed that side of things. So I joined a church band in Stellenbosch. I joined the student church, their band, and I started jamming along with them. And then I learned that I quite enjoyed improvising, and I really just enjoyed playing along with other people. I'm not really a soloist. You can book me for solo gigs and I'll be there, but I always like to play along with others, and a cello is a great instrument to do that with. And that's kind of where my career started taking off in terms of playing along with bands and doing various things like that. But a strong passion for teaching and music education, so I've never been able to really leave the one for the other.
And just to add to that, how do you feel that a classical training has shaped or set you up in your career, or has it had very little to do with the end game?
I'm very grateful for my classical training. A lot of the work I do at the moment is studio work, where artists would book me to come and do string arrangements on their albums. And that's very helpful that I have four-part knowledge and harmony and progression knowledge. And so really that has helped me a lot.
And how in that space, how do you navigate the difference between the acoustic space and the, what would you call it, the produced space?
I'm very lucky to work with, quite good producers who understand music as well. So it is, it's a working relationship where you with the producer are able to guide each other. Let's say it's also a producer that's not that well versed in classical music, that you are able to guide them, and that you have that working relationship with them. But I must say it gives me great satisfaction to listen to songs on the radio and hear my cello in the background.
Fantastic. Switching the focus a little bit, Kirsten. You have got a very interesting hybrid focus in your career with the music and the fashion. And I just wonder how those two elements fit together for you. And maybe you might also just share with us a little bit around aesthetics and how we process sound, and maybe the aesthetic element to performance as well.
I know we're talking about fashion, and my skirt gets hooked up into the mic. Thank you for that. That was a really good question. Myself, I've always been a hybrid, and I thought naturally I cannot hide it, I cannot restrict it. So I've always loved fashion, especially in high school. I would pull up to every dance with whatever best outfit I could find, and just a little bit about, I think I got it from my grandmother, from my dad's side. My dad's mother, she always loved her fashion, and I think we would always just get excited about it. So that's where that element came from. And then of course the music side of things, I just knew from the beginning, the moment I walked into a music store, that I wanted to do music. And whatever instrument was handed to me, I would figure out a melody. So I was just someone that knew what I wanted to do. And that made it easy to kind of form this hybrid presentation of music, because that way I could navigate beyond. By knowing what I wanted and by knowing what I loved from the beginning, I could navigate beyond towards the aesthetic side of things. So just curating a brand essentially, and that goes into the whole marketing side of things. So that was a lot of fun for me. I had no idea I had a passion for marketing so much, and we were just chatting about, making reels and things.
Do you think that the fashion side of things or the aesthetic side of things is quite on trend in terms of the music game?
I think they are equally as important. You need to be able to find that fine balance between your passion for music, your own personal style, and being able to have the confidence to put it out there as your own personal brand. Because, and this is probably the challenge, is that your personal brand, you're basically putting yourself, like all of yourself, out there into the world. And it's not like it's a product, it's literally you. So being able to be confident in that is essential to do so. I hope that answers the question.
It does. Tim, what started you off, what got you hooked? You're reading your bio, you've got an interesting combo because you're dealing in the DJ space as well as in the practical music space.
For sure. My journey started, I'm blessed to be part of a creative family, so my dad plays guitar, my mum's a pianist and a visual artist, and my brother played about 3 or 4 instruments. So I think my first musical memory was about 8 or so, sitting on my mum's lapboard next to her playing piano. So that would have been the start, and I picked up saxophone at, I think I was 11 or 12, and through school I had teachers, one of them sitting here, and after school, I did a sound production course at AC in Woodstock, and after that, I did a BMA's jazz performance degree at UCT. And from being in varsity, I played and started many different bands, and since then, not much has changed, but that would be the journey. Yeah.
So your journey has been fully digital, would you say?
No, not at all. So it was more acoustic. Like saxophone was the main instrument, and saxophone has this strong link with jazz music and traditional music, and being a 16-year-old teenager listening to Eminem or 50 Cent or whatever latest house music, it was a bit of an identity crisis of how do I get there, but I'm playing the saxophone, and what's the link? So I was like, well, maybe if I go study song production, I can learn how to produce these tracks I'm hearing on the radio. Hopefully some of the information I've learned from the saxophone world can translate. And then after doing that for a year, I felt a little bit like I'd neglected saxophone, and I'd been on that journey since 12, so I was like, wait, I also love that, so it's the story of my life as well. So that's when I went back to UCT and focused purely on saxophone for 4 years. But I've always kept that DJ side going, and now I play as a third member of GoodLuck, and that's predominantly an electronic dance band, so a lot of time is spent in the studio crafting music, but our live show features live instruments, so it's always been a combo of the two.
Excited. Can you think of any particular unforgettable gig that you've been involved in?
Good or bad?
Either. I can think of a very unfortunate one that I was involved in, but I'd love to hear it.
I think my favourite gig I've done, and we're very lucky, we played in the Maldives for a private 50th celebration, and we played in an underwater club. And that was just a very unique experience to be flown out there for 2 weeks. Snorkeling, I think we played a 45-minute set. So
music's quite glamorous.
Can be. Took a long road to get to that gig.
I presume you weren't playing underwater.
No, the club was underwater. So the club is underwater. It's surrounded. It's like almost being in an aquarium, but you're underwater. And there's sharks swimming around you.
This wasn't the water music.
Sorry?
This wasn't the water music.
No, I didn't take any calls before. No, so that was incredible. And I think this, let's say maybe strangest gigs, it's been a lot of strange gigs. Must be careful which ones I put out here. But I think just those, as a bad gig is, I remember playing at a market once in the early days. I must have been a second year student. I was booked, and you rock up at the market and there's no one there except the vendors setting up, but you've got to do your hour. And I look back and I think all those gigs were important. I'm sure everyone knows the 10,000 hour theory, and I believe in that, and that would have been part of my 10,000 hours. So grateful for Maldives, and also grateful for the market with no guests.
And Lize, when did you know that music was your love?
I think similar to everyone else on the stage, I also grew up from a very young age with being exposed to a lot of music and musicians. My dad was a great guitarist and singer, very musical guy. My mom played piano. I think my grandma was also a piano teacher. So I think it started pretty early on. But apart from that, I think we also have an affinity because it just comes a little bit easier to us than maybe other people. So sometimes, you know, someone can have ball skills, other people have skills with musical instruments, and I think especially those of us sitting on the stage are multi-instrumentalists. It comes easy. So I think we were just able to progress at a much faster rate, and things are often more enjoyable the better you are at them. So I think it all played a part. Started young and it just snowballed.
How do you relate that to education, or could you relate that experience to education?
Quick math.
Quick math.
Is that what you're asking?
No. I'm just thinking about formation. Really. Was this a family experience, or was it a school experience, or?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
What the impetus for getting going with music?
Still nothing. What is impetus?
Absolutely.
You
absolutely know.
So I don't know if I understood your question correctly, but I think, and Simon is here tonight, and Simon will agree with me that if you're a music teacher and you see students like Lize described now, you realize there's something special there. And then it's your job to promote that at a higher rate perhaps as the rest of the class. And if you have that opportunity to do that, it is actually quite a special thing that you do. And I'm looking at these students here, and they are all students who could do quick math, in the sense that you could play something and they can join in. Or even better, they can take it to a higher level.
Did you mean musical education?
I did. Yeah.
Sure, because I was reeling there. Thank you, Anjulie. Your question makes a lot more sense to me now.
I do.
But I will add to that then, one of the main reasons I came to this school, Somerset College, was for exactly those reasons. And this is where, I mean, the most of what I'm able to do is cultivated for sure. My parents had a lot of plans and I was just not willing to go along with any of them. I wanted to come here because I heard about the music department. I'd been to the Pops concerts, I'd been to the Termly concerts that they have. They've got it going on here when it comes to cultural arts and music and everything. And it was definitely one of the main reasons I came here, and one of the educational subjects that I look the most forward to.
Right.
I just want to chip in and second that, because I don't think I would have been able to navigate a stage the way that I do if it wasn't for, you know, Pops concert stages and monthly, quarterly concerts, and stressing behind the scenes about, you know, who's playing this, who's playing that, you know, all of that, like you said, 10,000 hours, it counts into that, and it just slowly starts falling into place about how to, you know, stress behind the scenes to put out an amazing product. So I'm really grateful for that.
I want to circle back to that, but I first want to ask Anjulie something, which is to do with, for aspiring young musicians, do you have any tips? So students who are in an education space, who have ambition, who have talent, who want to go somewhere, what would your advice be to them?
It's a good question. I find myself currently in a situation where I have to reinvent my advice because the world looks so different. What I would have told these students sitting here if they would have asked me so many years ago is very different to what the world looks like today. I was speaking to a young aspiring musician in the audience tonight who already has a channel for her music, which I don't have. You see, so the world's developing at quite a rate, so these guys are quite lucky that they're on top of that. But the advice I will give them is to stay dedicated, to find your voice, and to follow your dreams. As you know, you might know these conversations as well. I have them at grade 9 subject choice evenings where this child is dying to do music, but the parents just say no because they think it's not going to open enough doors for them. And all I can say to that is that I can see where the parents are coming from, because life is challenging and they want their children to be successful, and there's a perception out there that they're going to struggle as musicians, but I've never felt as a musician that I'm struggling and I'm living my dream. So it's they have a tough conversation and they bump into me in subject choices.
Good stuff. So I'm not going to direct this at anybody in particular, but do you have any strategies that you might share around digital marketing, streaming platforms for young folk who might be wanting to develop their own band, get their message out, get their music out?
Maybe just before we get there, to add on to Anjulie's point, my advice would be don't wait for someone to book you. So I remember when I was studying music, it is a bit of like a vibe between the different students of, some lecturers are booking the better students to come join them for gigs, and then they get there on Monday and they've got this sort of aura about them because they maybe played at a gig on the weekend and you're sitting there, damn, 6 months in and no one's booked me, how am I going to make this a career? And maybe this advances to year 2, 3, 4. And I think something, it wouldn't have been a strategy, I just ended up doing it, but I started my own band because I wasn't getting booked. So I thought, I'm not going to wait till I get called. I started a band, it was a reggae band, very different to what I was studying and what anyone else was doing. It was a little bit looked down upon because it's sort of, you're this jazz musician and now you're starting a reggae band. But I went out there, started approaching restaurants. The first events we did were under a bridge in Observatory to literally homeless people. We partnered with the soup kitchen and we would bring in the sound. We put so much work in. Bring in the sound out of like a 5-piece band. We'd bring in bands to open for us and close for us. We were like a big deal. We would book content creators to come and film and video it. But that, I look back and that band's no longer really going. But that was the start of everything. Because once people saw, oh, this guy's like playing at gigs and he's playing at this restaurant and like he must be good. Somebody, our sax player can't make it. That guy plays the saxophone, let's call him. So then you meet a new group of musicians. From there you meet a new group. But if you're just practicing in your practicing room, you can be the most amazing player. You play 8 hours a day. But if you don't get that opportunity to get in the real world, it doesn't really matter. So maybe to come to your question of a strategy, in this modern day and age, like TikTok, Instagram, these digital platforms, there's nothing, apart from access to a smartphone, stopping the kids from taking videos of themselves playing, uploading it, adding the captions. That could be the equivalent of like, don't wait for someone to call you, start making videos, because then when someone types in pianist or saxophone or dancer or whatever your creative medium is, you could pop up, you could get a phone call, hey, do you want to be part of this ad campaign, do you want to do this? Then suddenly you're networking with other dancers. So there really is no barrier to entry now. As long as you've got a smartphone, you can book yourself and make your own videos and build your own brand, and you don't need a teacher to give you permission. It's all on you. So I think there's a massive opportunity with digital.
Kirsten, could you just talk a little bit about some of the, not necessarily the obstacles, but some of the challenges in setting yourself up in terms of your career? And adding a sweetener on the end, how you managed to overcome these things.
Yeah, of course. Always positivity at the end. I would say, okay, so I'm going to circle back to answer that question. I'm going to circle back to what everyone was saying here about having families that grew up with music or celebrated music or played instruments. I actually didn't come from that. None of my family members could play an instrument or could sing for that matter. I had to point out to my mother, you're singing so false in church, stop. But she sang, which is great. Anyways, because of that, my responsibility for what I did was to kind of make it known. I was one of those kids that had to kind of like convince my parents in the beginning that this is something I really wanted to do. So that was my responsibility from the beginning. And the challenge that I started with was exactly that, convincing. And then also, because I grew up with that, nowadays I feel like it's my responsibility to protect, the professionality and the rights, for lack of better words, of myself as an artist and my fellow artists. because there's an assumption, let's just be real, like there's an assumption that, oh, you just play this, oh, come and play this for free, blah, 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 blah. So you have to choose your battles, and we chose our battle of music, which was our passion, so I think there's an authenticity there and an integrity there. But
to interject there,
sure.
How do you manage those channels? Because there is often that very unhelpful suggestion, oh, but you like doing what you're doing, so why should we pay you for doing it? The assumption is that everybody else has an unhappy life, but you know.
So I like to talk about balance. There's a fine line between understanding reality and what your vision is in terms of the music career. So it's always that balancing act on a daily basis of doing that, and you kind of unfortunately, but fortunately, because it makes you smarter, you have to question yourself every day about, okay, how can I make this better? How can I, and that's actually, there's a fun in it, actually, there's a fun in that challenge, at least for me. I know for everyone sitting here, there's a fun in it. There's, I guess it's just, understanding the vision of like how you feel you should be presented on stage and also off stage, maintaining your composure and maintaining your prestige, if that's a good word, and also humbling yourself at the same time to understand that there's a reality here that I have to accept. How do I translate my vision into that reality? That's it.
If you reflect on some of your experiences to date, what would you consider to have been your dream project?
That I've already done?
Well, either past or future aspirational ones.
Okay, well, let's talk about both. I think, gosh, I have so many to choose from, but if I have to choose, okay, I have to say two of them. One of them being the fashion show that I did for Cape Town, the fashion designer, Jacques Lagrange, and that was probably like none other, like something I've never done before. I didn't think I could walk down a runway and play a violin, but it happened. And I think what helped was I had the honor of working with such an esteemed fashion designer that had such a strong vision. And I think when I'm working with people not only within the industry, but also outside of the music industry, but also in a creative industry, you get inspired by different channels. So that was really such a beautiful moment that we created together. And then the second one would have to be my performance for a 50th celebration on top of the Wittgenstein Castle in Austria, where, I don't know if you know the cellist Hauser, but he also performed there, and I was like, no way, I'm on this stage as well.
Name drop.
Anjulie, do you have something to say? He's known to be a swooning cellist, but yes, no, it was a really beautiful experience to be there. And as for aspiring moments, I think I would just love to be in a design space internationally, a fashion design space internationally, where we can collaborate as music and fashion together.
Lovely. Lisa, could you maybe just chat to us a little bit about your thoughts about the evolving role of music in society's landscape?
You're nailing me with the hardest question. I'm still trying to catch my breath from when I fetched that guitar.
No, you can call a friend, you can call two friends.
The role of music.
Yes, the evolving role of music in society.
I think a lot of the times it has been one of the ones that are not as easily replaceable by robotic things such as AI, except that is obviously happening. But it's a very personal thing that happens between a listener and a musician. There's a lot of feelings and emotions and storytelling involved. Other than that, music in general, I think, has a lot of healing qualities. I know gets used a lot in therapy in many different ways for all kinds of ages, which I think is incredible. I don't think that's something that can be replaced. It is generally quite irreplaceable for me in a lot of different ways. So the evolving role of music, I feel like a lot of things is evolving and also not.
Do you think, how do you see the place of, for example, a static performance? Or do you think that we've shifted into a space where there's an audience expectation that they're stimulated in more than one dimension?
I think it varies because, again, I think it's a very personal thing. I know you can experience all kinds of things in all kinds of ways at the moment. You can watch things through VR goggles that are happening on the other side of the world. But I might prefer just what we're doing here, even one-on-one, maybe 10,000 to 1, it doesn't matter. I was so invested in what I was about to say that I forgot your question.
That's okay, because what you've just said has prompted my next question, which is not addressed to anybody in particular. Here are 4 musicians who have stayed in South Africa and are making a career as musicians working in South Africa. How does that work for you? Has there been a pull to be anywhere else? And the third aspect to that is, how does the digital space, the internet space, how has that maybe changed things in terms of having a global footprint?
I think it's definitely, the digital space has definitely made it easier to connect globally with people, whether it's putting out your content or putting out your music or connecting just direct message and so on. So for me personally, I have just a huge travel bug. I love traveling, and because it inspires me, it just inspires just everything that I do. I can bring you inspirational sources into my music and into my performance overall. So being based here is also interesting because I think there's more of a focus on the global, the Western side of music, but I think that's what makes us special at the end of the day, because without sounding cheesy, it is our time now, and I'm seeing a lot of just daredevil energy going into the global space. And I think we have to credit technology for that and those that are responsible for technology. And for that, I think we should also be working very closely with those that are in the technological space too.
So how do we move an audience's experience of music from looking at their device and watching a music video to being enticed into a concert space where they experience live music?
Well, what I'm noticing at the moment is that what they're seeing on social media is what they want to see live. So if you can make that experience as special through the screen, then you can draw them into the space live, and vice versa. I think that's the correct way of saying it.
I have an answer for that one. That's where I was going earlier. For me, I can't speak for anyone, other people. That for me was the main difference, especially realizing that in COVID, a lot of people, it's music and, well, I'm not a scientist, but it's all energy, right? So that would have been it for me. It's the difference of me playing a gig by myself and a gig with another musician, as opposed to a backtrack. There's that energy, and when you go to a concert, standing next to 10,000 other people, that palpable energy that you feel, and the sweat and the screaming, and yeah, there is that element that you can't get over screen.
And do you think that is what draws people to music concerts?
I think so. It's most definitely what draws me. I mean, all of that is going to affect my opinion of the concert itself at the end. I'm going to say that was incredible. The show aspect, the aesthetics themselves, the choreography, the pyrotechnics, whatever it is, that's going to affect my opinion of the show. But the experience itself, while I'm watching that, is to share it with other people.
If I can maybe just jump in a couple of questions back, sorry, I'm catching up here. But I think great question with the, how's technology impacting the future generations of music? And I think there's strong cases on both sides. So if I look at the music production case and producers making music for film, that side I think is in big trouble with AI. There's programs now that you can go, I want a classical song, it must be 1 minute, the scene is a car chase and it's high intensity, give me 6 options, boom, and it'll give you 6 options. And then you can say, and I want Eminem rapping over it in Eminem style, but with Lize's voice. Give me 6 options as well. And it'll spit them out. And that would be a job a human would have to do, and find session musicians and book studio time and create that. Go back to the client, do a reverb. So I think that side of the industry is in trouble. But that being said, the performance side, I think it could spin off in a good way in that the more automated the world gets, the more technology starts taking control of the creative space. When you do see someone stand up and play their violin, sing, play a cello, it's going to be like even more of a special experience, because it's like I'm so used to just getting that on YouTube or straight away. Now I can see who I can we played with the orchestra a couple of weeks ago, and like there's air that moves that you can't get from watching a YouTube video of an orchestra playing. So I think the live space has a lot of opportunity. The other question was around the local industry versus overseas, and we recently did a tour to UK, and just so interesting. It feels so clinical. So you get your slot, you work through a promoter, the promoter has the connection with the venue. Say you're playing 8 to 9, you have a sound check early in the day, you play a show. At 9, the club kicks everyone out. The floor is spotless, which is cool. No drinks poured, no nothing. But everyone's got to leave, the band's got to leave. They have like half an hour, they turn around and the next band comes in. And for us it felt so weird, because such a big part of what we do is you play the show, afterwards your friends are there, your fans are there, you're taking photos, you're selling merch, you grab a drink at the bar. There's a whole vibe and culture that, that's where the networking happens, that's where so much magic happens. But overseas just seems very clinical, because it's a bigger industry, because it's more of a formal industry. I also think it's harder, what I was saying, to book yourself and start things. So in South Africa, you can call a club and be like, hey, can I have a night on a Saturday? Can I bring in some bands? And they're like, cool, you take the initiative, here's the deal, great, where's this? Like, oh no, we're going to this agency, and this agency goes to that agency who's based in America, so if you want to play this venue, send an email to info@whatever. And it's harder to get that opportunity and that sort of entrepreneurial, spontaneous spirit. And then my last point, I promise. What was the other question?
I can't remember.
I know. Okay.
There were a few.
Technology. I'll come to it in 3 questions time probably.
And I've forgotten my next question. You may jump in.
Very lucky after I finished my studies in Stellenbosch to get a bursary. I worked at a music project, teaching kids to play the cello, kids from Langa and Guguletu. And MTN sponsored this project, and I could speak German. I had German as a language at school. There's something else I want to say is language is always a good thing. My German is still helping me today. It helped me a lot when I waitressed in Stellenbosch to make pocket money. So I got an opportunity to go to Austria to find sponsorship for instruments for the kids for the project. And as part of it, I could study at the Bruckner Conservatorium in Linz. And I lived in Austria for 2 years. And coming from vibrant South Africa, I loved my time in Austria. But something I could not understand is that the students from the classical music department did not mingle with the students from the jazz department. And if I ever visited the jazz department with my cello, I got into a bit of trouble. And something that I love being in the South African music industry is you could be at a gig and there will be all sorts of music. There might be something classical, and then there will be a DJ, and then there will be something, just so many styles of music and everything being appreciated. And I love that. And I love that I can be part of that. I mean, I can play a wine festival with Lize on guitar and cello, or I can play an electric gig with Kirsty, with backing tracks, or Tim hasn't booked me for a gig yet, but I'm sure we can have a lot of fun.
Are you seeing that kind of hybrid model, and this is a panel question, Are you seeing that as being quite uniquely South African at this stage, or is that a global trend?
Hybrid as in like
Crossover.
from instrument to instrument, or technology, a live instrument, genre.
I think you'll find it at music festivals there will be a variety, but I can tell you that the musicians here on stage, you could pretty much put them in any genre and they can hold their own, which is quite something special that the musicians get exposure.
Which is probably
and be encouraged.
advice to young musicians, is the versatility, I think.
Well, Beyonce just brought out a country. So I think versatility is up there with the skills that are
Sting has been an
advantages.
interesting one in that regard also.
Sting.
As a musician who has experimented in multiple genres and stayed relevant in some way.
I think it also depends what you want to do. So I think all of us perform and make ourselves available as a session musician, which is essentially can be booked by any band or anyone as a freelance musician. So if that's the space you want to be in, usually it's people that are passionate about an instrument. So we can go from playing a reggae gig to a jazz gig to a pop gig to whatever gig. Then of course you've got to be versatile, so you can get as many bookings. But if you're wanting to build a very distinct brand, then it's almost the opposite of you don't want to be seen as it's like, no, you've got to be known as the guy who DJs and plays saxophone. It's almost damaging if you're in the orchestra because they're like, this now 20-year-old who thought you were super cool, now the granny is looking at you like you know, so I think it's about deciding where you want to end up, what's your end goal, and putting your head down to get there. Not getting thinking, you've got this amount of money for this thing. You've got to have conviction to what you do.
I like that Lisa brought up that, just tying with what Tim said, I like that Lisa brought up the Beyonce example because I think behind the country album was a very, 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 very big, not just brand, but an intentionality around it. She had established herself already as a hip-hop R&B artist with a very distinct image and all of that. So I think it's all audio-visual as well. Like you have, like, you know, if you're going to be playing in the orchestra as a saxophonist, then that portrays a certain image, whereas as opposed to playing in a pop band, in an electro pop band. So it's the same with that example. And just going back to the crossover thing, how international it is, I would say that I think the US is definitely dominating in the sense of the marketing sphere, where they're crossing over, but they're crossing over in a very like a distinct way, like a very box, like, you know, we're going into hip-hop or we're going into country. And I feel like that's what's leading the way in terms of crossing over. I mean, I'm inviting panelists to give their input on that, but that's what I'm seeing at the moment.
What are you seeing audiences looking for? Are they looking for new experiences? Are they looking for the comfort of familiarity?
I think we're in a confusing time, and this also, I remembered my question, told you 3 questions later. Your point again of technology, and I think it's very confusing, and if you have the answer, I need to book you for a strategy session, because if I take my musician hat off and put a event promoter, festival booker hat on, it's like we come across artists that have millions of followers and views on TikTok and Instagram, but we book them for an event and no one shows up. So, you know, if you're crunching the numbers, you book an artist because you assume they're going to bring 5,000 people because they have 1 million eyes on them or whatever. But it doesn't always work like that. And I had a conversation with, I think he's called Vian the Magician, he's got the most amount of TikTok views in South Africa, and he's petrified of putting on his own live show. He's too scared to book like a venue and sell tickets, because he's just unsure if people will come. And this guy has the most amount of TikTok views in the country. So I think there is a bit of a disconnect of the views versus feet through the door. Yeah.
So, and this is not directed at anybody in particular, but if you're all, I understand, full-time practicing musicians with a combination of teaching as well. Is anybody else doing any teaching, or is it really plugged into being mainstream music. And
I have a music school in the estate where I live.
fantastic.
Yeah, it's one of the lowest paying but most rewarding things I've done in my career so far. So if I could choose anything, I'd stick with that.
Wonderful. Because my question was actually going to be, as a practicing musician, what percentage would you say is the creativity around music making, and what percentage is actually around learning how to promote your self-marketing strategy, business strategy, and to what extent, and where did you learn that? Was that something which went into a university course, or was that something which you had to pick up subsequently?
I think seeing music career as a business is one of the lessons a lot of us learn way too late. Make some good cash at a stage where it's going well. You know how to work with that. With Business 101 right there, I mean, that can really set you back a bit. And you does have a creative side. A lot of passion goes into it, but it is a business at the end of the day, with income and expenses and taxes.
I have a very cute story. So it was definitely not part of the classical musical curriculum studying at Stellenbosch. So they do ask you to put in a lot of hours practicing, and then you get kicked out on the street with your instrument. You're like, okay, now what do I do now? At school, I started realizing this because I took lessons at the music school, so I could see students practicing a lot, and sometimes I'll chat to them and ask them, what are your plans for afterwards, and then, what do you want to go do, and then of course it would be something like, I want to go play the Vienna Philharmonic or something like that, it's tough, competition is tough out there. So at school, two of my friends and I started playing at Lanzarote, the hotel. Every Sunday, I think they paid us something like 100 rand for the three of us and gave us food. And had little business cards that my mom printed for us at our home printer. And I got a request last year for Anjulie from the Klein Lanzarote Trio. So marketing is definitely very important, word of mouth. And another bit of advice I can give is to say, always perform your best. I was once in a show at the Car with a singer, and there were two people in the audience. But we performed so well, apparently, that the critic from the Huisgenoot went to the organizer of the festival and said, these two need a better venue where it's more accessible. So I think always to perform your best. I think I missed the question completely, but thank you for that. I could tell my new story.
It falls under a broader question, which is what have been the surprises in your career? And do you still want the same things which you wanted when you started?
Just before we start, I take a while to process it, okay? I think there's a massive gap in the industry and in the music educational systems for the business development side of it, because personally I knew nothing about business, and I studied for 5 years music. So I think that's shocking, to be honest, like not even how to send an invoice. So, and another point is that the music industry is such an unregulated industry. There are no rules, and I think it's something that's beautiful about the industry, is that it's completely up to you. There's no one's telling you what your price should be, how you should look, how you should communicate with your clients. It's completely up to you. So on one hand, there's a lot of freedom, but if you don't have the skills, you can also just get absolutely abused, because not everyone has a strong personality to go like no, or have the conviction. So because of that, there should definitely be more programs about how to run a small business, because essentially that's what you're doing. And it starts from small, sending an invoice, thanks for the gig on the weekend, to, you've written a hit song that's gone berserk in South Africa, and no one's agreed on the splits of what percent who's getting, who's paying that, what's the record deal, what's the publishing deal. And I don't even know a lot of that stuff still, and I'm lucky I've got people around me that do know, but it's really the Wild West. And yeah, I think there's lots of room and opportunity for help along the journey.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because speaking on wild west, I think you also need to understand yourself, your personality as a musician, your own personality, because what I found back in the day was that I was very emotional. I think anyone that plays an instrument is very emotional, and I don't know if I have to pay credit to the fact that I'm emotional, or if I'm a woman or something like that, But I had to understand that, or I had to identify that I was a very emotional person. And I think what saved me was understanding, okay, I need to put systems in place in order to run this business and still let the emotional energy flow into my music and performance. And so these systems have helped me in business, and it's also, it's understanding that thing of having the systems in place in order for the flow to work, and also learning how to transform and evolve with the world at the same time. So that's also a very interesting challenge, but it's fun at the same time.
How do you carve out space to do that? How do you carve out space to re-energize and find inspiration?
I like my alone time. I like being alone when it comes to that kind of thing, because I think especially putting out something that's so intentionally unique, if for lack of better words, you really have to carve out space for yourself and time. I don't know, I believe in feng shui, putting things a certain way in my house, you know, all those type of things, in order for my headspace to breathe, so that I can be like, aha, that's what I need to do. Also space to like overthink it, because I think overthinking is necessary, but the time and place is what it is.
Also, just to add, like I kind of see the curve of a musician is you leave school, you want to pursue music, and you go study, and you go into a phase of like you're practicing 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day, and that's an important phase to be into to build your product so people want to book you. But then once that product is going and people book you, it's easy to also flip all the way to the other side where, you know, you can look back and be like, I haven't practiced my instrument, I'm just going from airport to airport, flying around, driving around, sending invoices, chatting with the manager. I'm a musician, but it's been a year, I haven't even practiced my instrument, I haven't written new songs. And I don't know what the answer is to that. I think a big one, and some advice I got, was to be gentle with yourself, and that there's a time and a phase for everything. So, you know, even on a smaller scale, maybe it's like, you know, we all do a lot of weddings and corporate events, so that's, you know, that's going to peak in November, December, January, February, then we have winter, so like, you know you're going to be performing a lot, but in winter you can sit with your instrument, you can practice, you can go into another phase, and not stressing when you're playing a lot that I'm not practicing, or stressing that all I'm doing is practicing and I'm not playing a lot, otherwise you just spin in circles. So making sure that the flow is always there, and not judging yourself too hard, but also being aware if you have spent too long focusing on one without the other.
Thank you. This is my last question, because I think these poor guys are getting tired. You, just reflecting on your journey, your formation, your experience maybe of music as a child, which has ultimately led to your life choices. You're probably the exception to the rule, because the majority of young people who explore music don't end up making music a career. What advice would you give for students like some of the ones tonight about music at school? Do you think, is music as a subject a good idea? Did you do music at school? Do you think that subject choices should be based around career choices, or how has it worked for you? What would your advice be for a young person who's experienced something of a spark, and there's some interest there, but of course there's also that other dialogue which is going on around, I'm not going to become a professional musician, maybe I should be doing something else.
I was a very shy teenager. Probably people can describe me as a bit of a nerd when I was at school, the cello girl. But I found high school was quite tough for me when I hit grade 9 specifically, and it's interesting, I've always been teaching grade 8 and 9 class music, and I see what teens go through in that time. And I think when I was 15 years old is really when I started getting into my cello. I thought my cello was a bit of an escape for me. I would just close myself in my room and play cello, and it would make me so happy. And whenever I feel overwhelmed or without inspiration, I would just go back to that. And even now, I'm at a place now where I feel I want to go back to that full time actually. Not just close myself in the room and play, but play the music that comes from my heart. I've spent a lot of years working really hard and playing with other musicians, which I really enjoy. And I think it's important. That's why I take my hat off to these guys. I actually didn't ever have that confidence to just play my cello out there the way I do. I've had opportunities. But it's like Tim also said, this is what you do, this is your brand, and they're brave, they're going for it, you have to be brave. So I'm looking at myself and my journey going, I'm going to be brave, and I'm going to play my cello like I play in my room. But my advice is when I see students and they ask me, what do I think? Should I do this style or should I do this? I'll just say, play your style. And I encourage them, I'd like to hear what their style is, where it comes from, because that is their voice that's coming through. And that is my advice to them.
I would say hone your craft and build a product as your first step. And actually, I met up with a friend that was also at Somerset College. And I found it quite funny because she's got a more traditional corporate route, works in London, and she's been exploring, playing around with music. And she's like, I want to meet up with you and catch up and chat about music and maybe, share some tips with her. So I said, sure, let's meet up. And she was like, yeah, I want to do music, and like this is what I'm doing, but like, it's not working, and blah, blah, what would you say? And I was like, well, this is quite strange, because I thought about it, like, I don't go up to Andre Pollard and say like, yeah, I've been like kicking for like 2 months, and it's not working, I don't know why I'm not in the side, and like, any advice? It's like, and I said to her, I said, you need to put your head down for 10 years and go and practice something, and in 10 years' time, come to me and be like, let's chat now. And I know it might be a bit harsh, but if I look back, like that's what I did. I made sure I was establishing myself as an instrumentalist to the point where people called me. I didn't go around and go, should I do TikTok or YouTube or play this or whatever. I just grafted one thing until I got known as that guy, and that opened opportunities. So I think, for kids, it could be different. It could be like, I want to do YouTube magic or comedy. It's not going to happen in a month or two. It probably won't happen, but hone your craft, practice it. Do it for 2, 3, 4 years. Don't do it for 2 months and then get upset. Like you're trying to be an elite athlete or an elite performer. It's going to take time.
Thank you.
There was an athlete that said, I put 10 years into 4 minutes of a race, worth of a race. And that's very true, and I think just looking at my journey as both a vocalist and a violinist, vocals feeding into my violinist career in terms of tone, in terms of, performance itself. That was a confusing question for me actually, because I was like, okay, wait, I can play multiple instruments, but like, how do I measure vocals up to my violin side of things? And I found the answer for myself. And that's the point. You have to just learn how to back yourself up with the years that you have. And the point is, if you're in music in general, you've got years to back yourself up. And you have learned to practice something to the point where you can apply that confidence in the next thing that you learn to play and put out there. So it is years and years, and it's also, I forgot the question.
The question was around advice to young people around things like subject choice and what to do.
Subject choice, right. Okay, so I'm not even going to advocate for music fully, because I think everyone needs a creative outlet, and mine just so happened to be music, because there I learned that I loved sharing this thing with people. I liked making people happy. I liked making people dance. If I've achieved dancing at the end of a performance, that's a done deal. Like it's done. So it's also finding that thing that you can literally pour into, express, release, and give to people as a product. And the creativity or the creative subject, whether it be music, whether it be art, whether it be drama, is so essential, because that kind of thinking is a gift, and it's a gift for any sphere that you go into. So I think creativity is an asset, and that's definitely something you need to practice.
Thank you all very much for a very insightful conversation with some slightly awkward questions from time to time. I'm noting that behind me is one of the best travelled cello cases that I've ever seen. And I'm hoping that before we all disappear, that we might actually get to hear some music, whether it's informally as you're mingling or whatever it might be.
We're also just going to have some questions from the audience.
Can I maybe set a question up, because obviously I've just got an answer for 3 questions ago. But you had a question of what do people want? And I think it's such a good question, because if I look specifically in the pop space, there's certain big brands like with Jeremy Lute, your Matthew Mole, if you go another generation, your Mango Groove, Freshly Ground. But if you look downwards, I would say Will Lidley has really broken through. But where are the new artists? You know, where are the 22-year-old artists that are coming up? Because I almost think like those other artists are all of a certain generation. Jack Parrow, you know, where was that wave after them? And is it linked to technology? Do people just want? Are people not over live music? But I often go, what's happening in our space, and why hasn't there been another wave like that? Because those are 6 massive artists, all in probably a 5-year age gap. What do you want, people?
I think maybe I will start off the questions. You've chosen a job or a profession that's pretty much in the public eye, and I know Kirsty, for instance, has got a stage name. How important is it, or difficult is it, to keep your professional and your private lives separate? And does a stage name help with it? Kirsty, maybe you can answer.
I guess I will start. Yeah, I like to keep my private life very private. I have certain policies when it comes to, you know, going out, mingling, leaving at a certain time when it comes to like networking events. And that's another point I need to raise, is that, you know, when you are talking and mingling, it depends on what brand you're putting out, but it really depends on that. It's how you've presented yourself, and you need to present yourself accordingly. So private life, I would say protect that. That's the reason why I have 2 phones. That's why I have a stage name. Because I think at the end of the day, I also want to protect family, and I want my family to be my family, you know, like I don't necessarily want to put them out there on my social media exactly. I know other musicians, public figures might think differently, maybe because it's part of their branding and so on, but I like to keep the 2 separate because, yeah, we need to breathe too.
Sorry, me again. So you actually just mentioned it, the breathe again. If you are constantly having to chase the next performance, you don't really have a choice, or at least, I mean, for I want to say a normal person, it seems like you don't have a choice. If you're asked to perform, you got to do it. How do you find the motivation or the energy when you're actually not up for it, but you have to do it? This is open to anyone.
For me, I actually answered it earlier. Sometimes it's not a hobby, it's business. You show up. So you pay your bills. Don't pay my rent with, what is that thing, 800 exposures. Even though I do think there's a time and a place to do things for exposure, it is a networking strategy. It's part of a business. A lot of people do it. It is a business. Sometimes you just have to show up. I often don't feel like doing it. And when I get there, I have to find a way to look like I'm really enjoying what I'm doing, because it's such a personal and emotional, like we were saying, experience as a musician. You know, I'm not sitting cooking someone's books in a cubicle maybe or whatever. I'm here, like looking you in the eye. Sometimes you just got to show up. That's work, that's income, you got to do it. And I don't think often, I don't think we feel like it all the time. Like if you're touring and you're jumping from airport to airport, it's work. We enjoy it, but it's work.
I
I think with both questions, in my case, I'm so fortunate and grateful that I'm in a band with 3 of us, and myself and Ben, usually our setup is we're at the back and then Jules is the lead singer, so bless her, she takes so much of the attention on stage as well as in the public eye. And yeah, I'm grateful for that because we're lucky we can cruise around, it's cool, but it's definitely different if you are the front-facing element of the brand and from live performances to the public eye. I think what I often also say to people is that, oh, you're lucky, and you're like, don't forget everyone, this is still a job, you have good days, you have bad days, it's the best job in the world, but it's still a job.
I have another cute story. When I was in high school, I waitressed at a coffee shop called Julian's. It's still in the Eckestad Mall. It's just not run by Julian anymore, but at that point Julian ran it.
Giving away your age now.
Yes, it's my and Julian is a shortish guy. And I remember when I had music as a subject at school, I used to get really good marks, like really in the 90s, and I thought I'm nailing this. And I played my first cello exam at the Stellenbosch University in my first year, and I think I got like in the 60%, and they just told me, you better go and close yourself in your room and practice now. And I was gutted. And I went to waitress that evening, and I think I must have come in and started shining the cutlery like this, and filling the sugar bowls like this. And I was in the kitchen, and Julian was behind me, and he said to me, you pull yourself together. The customers, I don't care if your cat died, I don't care if your boyfriend dumped you. You pull yourself together. The customer out there is paying for you to look friendly. They want to have a good time in this restaurant. And every time I feel a little bit down, I think of that life lesson. Just not even with my performing, but just in general. Just thinking, you get over yourself. And I must feel, if I ever feel like that in performances and I have to bring myself back, I think of that lesson, and usually by the end of a gig I feel much better. Because playing music just makes me happy. So often afterwards, I'm glad that I got over myself there.
Sorry, just to add on, also like a funny story and some clarity maybe, a lot of agents or people booking bands will also like misunderstand the hospitality rider. And hospitality rider is what refreshments you have, what meals you have, any specifics that the band or the artist needs backstage, and that could also go to like accommodation specifics. And it ranges obviously to ridiculous things like honey-free badger, or what? Badger-free honey, to three orders on stage or whatever. But that stuff is important. You know, if you have Red Bulls on there, if you have a hotel at a 4-star, it's not because you're trying to be difficult or you're trying to be a diva. It's because if you're on a 3-4 month tour and every time you're in a different hotel and the aircon doesn't work and this doesn't work and you're not sleeping and then there's no Red Bull or there's no Coke or there's like you're not getting a meal, so you're ordering a burger. Like if you're doing that like 3 to 6 months of the year, it really impacts your career and how you show up as a professional. So of course there's a fine line, but I do find it funny when we get a bit of flack for that. But it's so that we can do the best job when we're on stage.
Hey guys, thank you. Hi guys, thanks very much for being here. So it's very clear listening to you guys that brand is incredibly important for your career and your career development. So for somebody starting out, how would you guys establish your brand first off, and also identify your brand target audience? Because it's very well and good having, you know, a brand concept, but if nobody's going to really give a damn, then nobody's going to buy it. And as you've said many times tonight, it's a business. And business needs customers.
I think if I can start for that very, very first thing, which is starting or not starting. Sometimes you do need to sort of, it's never going to be perfect and you mustn't wait and say, oh, I'm not ready, but also do be careful what you put on immediately. Do put some planning into it and do try to create something. The brand is going to build along the way, but it needs to be intentional, like we've mentioned. So don't just recklessly put stuff out, and because sometimes it can come across as fickle. I'm uploading something, I don't like it, I take it off. I put it on, I take it off. So do put some planning into it. So that's me. I'm the very, very first part there, starting or not starting. Don't do it recklessly, but don't wait forever, and I'm going to pass off to my friends here.
I think, yeah, starting is very important, and strategy is also important, definitely, but planning to fail as well, you know, so accepting the fact you're going to fail, and within that failure you're going to find, oh wait, I saw that thing there. Like, you discover more when you fail than when you succeed. And then when you do compare your failure to the successful piece of content, I don't know, you get to use that comparison to find out, okay, what was that thing that caught everybody's eye? So it's that comparison that's fun to play with, and therefore you find your brand through it.
I think make sure you have an online presence. I'll often get emails or messages from musicians saying, hi, want to play weddings, let me know if you've got any bookings. And so I'm like, well, who is you? What do you play? What do you do? What do you look like? What kind of music do you play? Is it a band? Is it a backtrack? Do you have sound? Like, the first thing I do is I Google these people, and if they don't come up, you know, that's really just red flag. Like, if you can't put effort in, and again, it's a smartphone, YouTube videos, TikTok videos. So make sure you have an online presence. If someone searches Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, you come up with the thing you want people to know you do. And then the target audience is a tricky one, but I would say if you're starting out, it might not be the answer you want to hear, or might be contradicting, I'm not sure, but in some ways you don't get to decide. And I would say put out, and you'll start to see who resonates with what. So say you try different genres, like, wow, every time I do like a jazz video, I get a lot of interaction, people seem interested. And then finally, I would say document, don't create. So it's quite intimidating to go, oh, I've got to create videos and people are going to watch me and whatever. It's like, what are you doing already? Just stick a video up. And I'm doing it currently. And for example, I produce music for little short films and ads and stuff. And I just started editing it together, showing what I do with that. And just from, I think I've got like 1 up. I've actually got 1 up, how embarrassing, 1 up. And I've got like 3-4 inquiries just because people maybe followed me from a gig and they're like, oh, I see you also do music for this. I work at an ad agency, can you help out, boom, boom, boom. But if you don't have that online stuff, people will never know.
It's very, very interesting listening to these youngsters here. So when I started out in the music industry, there was no social media. My cell phone was this big.
Did you have a life?
So word of mouth was very important, and if you got a gig, you had to make sure that you were prepared. You make sure that you were there on time. There was no WhatsApp of anyone reminding you. Someone will phone you and say, I'll see you in a week on Saturday at Spear, and we're going to play in a string quartet, and you have to make sure that you're all prepared. So it's interesting because from there the word of mouth would spread in a different way. In a sense, we were luckier then that if we didn't have such a good performance, it wouldn't go all over social media because everyone filmed you and now you've got no control over it. Because there's a lot of pressure with the social media. But listening to them talking about you, asking about your brand, and that it was what you see is what you got on that. That's your brand showing up there. And with social media, you can sometimes make things look pretty and put a filter on, make your hair dark or something. I don't know, but. In those days, you really had to, show up, and that was you arriving there, and you had to bring it.
So thinking of showing up, we would love to hear some music tonight. I think probably in an informal way. Oh, one more question.
Sorry, so from my side also, thank you for your time being here. Maybe just a follow-up question on the content that you put out and the quality of that content. You know, I'm looking at Carla here, she puts out some content, but currently we're asking questions about the production quality thereof. So one option is obviously to find a studio, to have somebody, make it sound great and add instruments and so on. At the moment she's sitting with a cell phone, CapCut, edit a video, do everything with the cell phone basically. I assume it's a bit of a balance to get, is that quality good enough when you start out? And at what stage should you now go serious and say, okay, now I need to find a studio where I can go and somebody professionally can help me put this together? Just some advice around that.
I'd also be curious what that threshold would be for you specifically as a producer, because that is exactly how you start. At what stage do you think to myself that I need to have this song produced and released? Where's the threshold?
I think it's when you can afford it. So I would say, if you're doing it yourself, invest in yourself and your skill set. So maybe instead of paying someone else or a studio, so I assume is it singing videos, covers, originals?
Yeah, I write my own songs, so I'm trying to get them out there.
Awesome.
And I obviously have an idea in my head, so I don't want it to sound much less than it sounds in my head.
You don't want them to ruin your song. I got you. Yeah, I mean, something I did, and looking back, I think I'll do differently, is that this band that I spoke about that we started, we went and we got a really hot producer, older guy, came at a big price tag, we begged our parents for the money, and we spent years paying it off, and it was an amazing experience, and yeah, by no fault of his, we were super happy with the product, but I almost look back and go, damn, if we had spent that money on a couple microphones, a sound card, and done it ourselves, we would have learned so much about music production. We still would have got those songs out there, and would that have been a better way to do it? Because the next time we did it, there wouldn't be this big damn. Last time we dropped that money, did we get it back? Was it worth it? We would have been like, oh, we can just keep creating because we're doing it ourselves. It's costing us nothing once you've got the basic gear. So I would say, do it yourself, invest in, when you can, invest in upgrading your gear slightly. It does make a difference, the quality of microphone, if it's video, camera. And also, there's no harm in if you've got a song that goes and you can see, wow, there's something in the song. You take that song, pull it down, and you take it to a producer and you go, I'm really confident about this song, but I want it to be at an international level, I want it to have that polish. And then you ship it around, but you've got a bit of proof of concept that, that would be my advice.
I think that's great advice.
So before, I just wanted to comment on your question that you all asked, your questions ago. I'm catching up now. So there's a guy who probably, here I'm talking about saxophonist, and I saw him the other day with the show Elvis. And you asked, what is it that we want? And, looking at that performance, looking at Elvis and Hiram in specific, the enjoyment on the face of that guy, that you don't see on a video, that you see live. And I'm not saying grow dreadlocks and stuff like that, but just enjoy what you do and show that to us. It doesn't matter if it's a saxophonist, a violinist, a cello, but to see people really passionate about what they do, whether it's on a guitar, I'm just amazed, that 10,000 hours, you can see it. You can see that enjoyment on their faces. I think that's what we want to see. So put yourselves out there and just enjoy it and show it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
We have another question.
Hi, thank you so much for tonight. My name is Rocco, and I've been playing trumpet for quite a few years throughout the prep and now recently the high school. And I love playing jazz with all my friends. And I was just wondering, how do me and my friends, or any group of people, take this to the next level, like gigs, just outside the school, If that makes any sense.
I remember when we were here at college, we would arrange little performances in the area. Maybe restaurants, parents that own restaurants, maybe even parents having a little house concert, inviting friends, just to get that experience.
What was your first gig? Mine was a friend's wedding. It was for free, and their mom asked me. That's how it started for me.
Mine was there at Lanzarote, with the Lanzarote Trio. My first gig was actually with you, Lisa, who played a wedding.
It's the same wedding.
I don't know.
But a friend of a friend, do you want to try it out? Just connections. It was definitely free. I don't think you're allowed to pay.
Didn't I send you guys out for gigs? I remember sometimes sending students out for gigs. When I think, they've got a little something going. Sometimes people, organizations would ask, it's a charity organization, do you perhaps have students at your school? And that is why it's lovely if you have students that are grouping up and playing in ensembles. But that would be my suggestion, is start small. Maybe a house concert for your friends and your parents, maybe a background music and a little playing of a shopping centre or something like that, you know.
Weddings
Yes.
are an interesting landscape.
Also, look right in front of you. You're at Somerset College, right? Okay. So look right in front of you. You've got a school that hosts music concerts itself. Take advantage of that. Use that as the playground, and then expand that to hosting your own concerts outside of the school.
Thank you so much.
Just on a super practical level, get 2 45 minutes worth of music together.
Yes.
So you can at least play for 2 hours and play background music for those 15 minutes.
And always plan for the encore.
I think that chair needs to come over as
I
well.
have an explanation for the instruments on the side of the stage. So I thought it was a prime opportunity for musicians. We haven't seen each other in a very long time, most of us. And being session musicians, pulling together a quick song over the phone. I actually double-checked this with Elita. I thought we're music people, we must do a music thing. Give a chord progression, it's 6 chords. We haven't practiced, but we all know the song.
I also didn't listen to the whole voice note, so I missed your chord progression. I'll figure it out.
I didn't want to.
I didn't give the chord progression. You have to wing it. So that's what we're going to do now. It's just gonna we're gonna wing it, because that's often what we have to do anyway. we're supposed to. Waking up too early, maybe we could sleep in. Make a banana bed, can't pretend like it's the weekend now. We could pretend it all the time. Can't you see that it's a train? There ain't no need to go outside.